Okay, so last section is kind of a different deal, but part of it is factor by grouping. So I think I did say there was 4 types of factoring. This is kind of an isolated one. It is like a 5th type of factoring, um, but it's not. It's kind of a special thing. It's not used nearly as much as the others. Um, so what you're going to see is 4 terms. Oops, I forgot the 3. Okay, so, excuse me. Factor by grouping. So we are going to group the first 2, and we are going to group the second 2. And then we are going to take out what's in common with each set separately. So what's in common with this first one? Well, there's no number by the x to the 3rd power, so there's no number in common. But there is x to the 3rd means 3 x's, and x squared means 2 x's. So they each have at least x squared. And so if there's 3 and I took 2 out, there's 1 left. If I took the x squared out, it's gone. Okay, so that's one of them. All right, what's in common with the second one? Now, when you have a plus right here in front of the 2, I'm going to put plus. If it was minus, I would take out minus whatever. Okay, so what can I divide into 2 and 6? I can divide a 2. So when I divide it, you should get the same thing in the parentheses. Okay, that should always happen. If it doesn't happen, you did something wrong on accident. So look back. Maybe you didn't take out a big enough number, or well, I don't know. Just these need to match. Okay, and then your answer is what's on the outside. So this x squared and that 2. And then what's on the inside is an x plus 3. Now, you only put one of them. Okay, don't put both. That is the answer. Okay, so your answer is still, we're factoring, the answer is still 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, it's not 3 or 4 or whatever. The most common mistake that I see on one like this, and it makes sense to me, is x squared plus 2, and then x plus 3, and then another x plus 3, because there's the black one and the red one. Okay, so just be careful with like that, so that you don't put both of them when you don't need to. Okay. So let's look at another one. Tried to copy it from somewhere else, so hopefully I got it right. Okay. So group the first 2, group the last 2. Okay, what's in common in the first one? 2 and 3, can't divide anything with 2 and 3, but they each have an x, so I can take out 1. So x squared is 2 x's, that means there's 1 left. Took out the x, so I have 3. Okay, so over here, because that's a minus in front of the 18, I take out a minus. So up on this top one, it was a plus. Down here, it's a minus. Okay, what can I divide 18 and 27? That'd be a 9. Okay, and 18, so it's negative 18 and negative 9. That's a positive 2x. Negative 27 and a negative 9 is a positive 3. So then my answer, what's on the outside, what's on the inside. Okay. Kind of looking at something here. All right. So some of the other problems, you'll have grouping, like the first section of problems is all grouping. And then you'll have some that say factor completely. Okay, so what does that mean? A section of grouping problems like these. And then after that first initial set, so let's say we had something like that. Okay, well, what's in common? That's always first. So what's in common? 36 and 4, I can divide by 4, so let's take a 4. And then they each have, this has 4 a's, a to the 4th power is a to the 2nd power is 2 of them, so they have an a squared in common. So then divide, 36 divided by 4 is 9. There were 4 and I took out 2, there's 2 left. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Took out a squared. So this will happen on some of the problems. If you do whatever you're supposed to do, and you end up with a squared or x squared or y squared or something squared, you need to take a look at that. You might be able to keep going. Okay, so when I look at this, I see 2 terms. So it's got to be difference of squares, or I can't factor, going back to like section 7. Okay. Can I do the square root of 9? Yes, square root of 9 is 3. Can I do the square root of 1? Yes, it's 1. That's kind of trips people up sometimes. Square root of 1 is 1. And it's subtraction. So that means I can do it. If it wasn't subtraction, or if I couldn't do the square root, then I'd be finished. Okay, so 2 sets of parentheses. 1 plus, 1 minus, because the last one's negative. And then we just put our square roots in the problem. Okay, so you're going to get some where you take something out and then you're going to have a difference of squares. You could have a perfect square. You could have a regular, like factoring. So it kind of incorporates all of them. And then you'll have some that are grouping, like we just did on the other examples. Okay. And just like the rest of them, you'll have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the end that you will do solving. Okay, so let's look at kind of a weird one. So some of the graph ones, remember, ignore the graph and just look at the equation that's underneath the graph. We're going to talk about graphing when we get to chapter 8. So the graph ones will have a y. You can just erase that and put 0. Or for that matter, you could put the 0 all the way at the other end. Okay, you could, if it makes it look nicer for you, you can take that and say equal 0. A lot of people like that, and that's fine. Okay, all right, what's in common? Well, they all have 2 x's, like x squared, x to the 3rd, x to the 4th. They all have an x squared. And then when you see a negative number in the front, remember we're going to take out negative if there's a number in common. And this one's maybe not as obvious, but you can do 24 divided by 3, you can do 3 divided by 3, and you can actually do 45 divided by 3. It's not as obvious, but okay, so then what we end up with is x squared, negative and negative, positive 8x. negative, negative, positive 15. Just be careful with like these ones. If there's a negative in the front, you gotta like make sure that you switch the signs when you do that. Okay, so x squared, that means I'm probably gonna factor. So last term's positive, so that means the signs are the same. Look at the other sign, that's positive, so they're both gonna be positive. With it just being x squared, it's gotta be x and x. What times what is 15? That adds up to 8. 5 times 3. Okay, and then the solving, negative 3x squared equals 0, x plus 5 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0. So remember, I've said this a few times, if there's no plus or minus in the problem, when you go to solve it, 0 divided by negative 3 is 0. The square root of 0, like it's always going to be 0 when there's no plus or minus in between. When there's a plus or minus like these ones, then yeah, it's going to be different. Okay. So the last, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 problems, you'll factor it and you'll solve it. So you'll see, definitely you're going to see some that are grouping, but some where you take something out, difference of squares, take something out. I call it just regular factoring. You could have a perfect square where the two parentheses are the same. You know, they're both x minus 2 and then another x minus 2. And so if you get that, you don't like, you know, oh, the answer is 2 and then 2 again. Like you only need to write one of them if they're the same. Okay. All right. So one last little bit. We'll start to review tomorrow. We're going to go back over each like section. So don't expect you to be like perfect right now, but moving in that direction. Okay. All right. Have a great rest of your Tuesday and we'll see you tomorrow.